Welcome to the award-winning RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy and FanDuel. It's Friday, February 9th. Alex Barutha here with Shannon McEwen and Ken K-Train Kreitz.
All aboard for post-trade deadline madness.
Post-trade deadline madness. Get hyped. Grab your coffee. Do whatever you got to do. Look at everyone's roster. Realize that Kevin Knox is a part of the Jazz, and Robin Lopez got traded, and all this stuff. But let's go through some bigger trades. We're not going to get too dialed into the draft pick minutia and cash. I think the Bucks acquired some cash yesterday. But yeah, let's just start at the top. The Knicks have the headliner, Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks from Detroit, and then Quentin Grimes and some other stuff goes to Detroit. The Knicks are going to be missing Julius Randle for another 2 to 3 weeks. OG Anunoby now got diagnosed with an injury that'll cost him 3 to 4 weeks. He had been out. It was an elbow injury. Jalen Brunson day to day. I think the hope for the Knicks is that Randle and Anunoby both come back in late February, optimistically. But don't be surprised if, it's actually March. Yeah, for the Knicks, this adds a bunch of scoring, right? This is, real life terms, I love this move. They didn't give up that much. They get a scoring punch, etc. But when everyone is healthy on New York, Bojan's going to come off the bench. It's just going to be Anunoby and Randle in the starting lineup. They're big winners, Ken, but what do you think here, either from a real life or from a fantasy perspective?
Well, let's face it. If some Midwestern team had traded for these two, would everyone be jumping up and down? Like, yeah, the Knicks are playing really well, and now they've got 3 key players hurt. But people love East Coast bias. Nick train. Oh my gosh, everything's fabulous. Like, this is not that huge a trade, and maybe this speaks to the small size of the other deals made, but people are jumping up and down. I realize there's 100 columnists that have to write a winners and losers article, but this is fine. Those two don't play defense, so Tibbs is going to hate them sooner or later. But it's a very nice Band-Aid on a team that does need some scoring, and hopefully it helps them get through what's going to be a rough month with all their stars out.
You wouldn't drop Bojan, would you? You have to at least wait until Anunoby and Randle come back and then see what happens.
I agree. Shannon?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Bogey's going to be fine until Randle and or OG returns. But once that happens, he's going to be droppable. But for now, hold him. And then, down the stretch run, find a good replacement to stream in there.
Shannon, what do you think is going to happen with Will Grimes in Detroit?
Will Grimes? Quentin
Grimes.
Oh, man.
I wrote down, will Grimes have meaningful role in Detroit? I meant as in, will
Of
he?
course.
Sorry.
Well, if I will it hard enough, maybe, but I doubt it. I actually expect Grimes to have a reserve role with the Pistons. Really coming off the bench and subbing in at the 2 and the 3 spot. So he'll essentially be their 6th or 7th man, right in that range. Cunningham, Ivy, and Ausar Thompson should be locked in at the 1, 2, and 3 moving forward for the Pistons in the starting lineup, at least. Speaking of the Pistons, they've got a win streak, baby. Back-to-back wins. 4-4 over the past 8. One of the hottest teams at the bottom of the standings.
Well, Grimes is going to get all those glorious Killian Hayes minutes.
He could get some of those.
I wanted to put a compilation video of all the times Shannon recommended Killian Hayes as a free agent pickup the last 2 years. So
that would be, at least 48 minutes of viewing pleasure. I like Will Grimes from a real life fit on the Pistons. From a fantasy perspective, I do not expect him to have a big impact.
Yeah, Quentin Grimes. We'll get into it later, but he's my long shot pick. Okay, hey, Dallas made 2 trades yesterday, landing them PJ Washington from Charlotte and Daniel Gafford from Washington. The Mavs now have a 2-headed monster at center with Gafford and rookie Derek Lively. This kind of lowers both of their values, unless Lively's nose injury is worse than expected. He has missed 5 games with his broken nose. Alex, have you heard any more injury rumors on Lively?
Chop that thing off, baby. No,
Chop the
I
nose
just
off?
yes. I think it's just it's giving him a lot of trouble. So nose injuries only last so long unless it's got like shattered, and I think it's
Respiratory
just
problems caused from it.
yeah.
But so to me, fantasy wise though, hey, now Marvin Bagley and Rashawn Holmes are the centers for your Wizards, who we know at least play a fast pace and zero defense. I think you pointed out in your column yesterday, Alex, that Bagley's the safe pickup, and I did pick up Marvin Bagley in a league. But you have always loved the permanent production of Rashawn Holmes, who is 30 years old.
Yeah, look, pick up Marvin Bagley, but I am worried in a good way that Rashawn Holmes is going to start playing minutes again. He just the past 2 seasons for him, like 2 seasons ago in Sacramento, he basically fell out of the rotation. This year in Dallas, he couldn't latch on. But those were situations where teams were trying to win, and they had some other options. Washington doesn't really have other options, and I think they would love to rehabilitate Rashawn Holmes' value as much as possible. He is 30, doesn't fit their timeline, but I also don't know what they're doing. So
your recommendation is that you think Holmes is going to get extra run because Washington is not trying to win.
Yeah, pretty much.
That checks out.
Yeah, I think if you're in a 16-team league, you should at least entertain the idea of Rashawn Holmes.
16-teamer, sure. I do. I think Marvin Bagley is actually the apple of this waiver wire period, post-trade deadline waiver wire period. He's the hottest pickup in my opinion. He's performed well with the Wizards coming off the bench or getting spot starts when Gafford was out. Bagley is currently out with a back injury and has already been ruled out for Friday's game. But Bagley is the guy who I would want. I think should play close to 30 minutes per game for the Wizards once he's healthy, and he can be productive. He might not be a good winning player at the NBA level, but he can produce from a fantasy standpoint if he's getting that many minutes.
I agree. Bagley's our cover guy for the pod this week, and I've got him in my pickups, my waiver wire talk later. But guys, question for you. PJ Washington, is he really a first-round pick better than Grant Williams? Because they gave up a first-round pick and Williams to get Washington.
It's not about it's Grant Williams. It's his contract. Grant Williams. Everybody hates him, and his contract
deal, but it's a year longer.
And he's worse.
PJ Washington is significantly better than Grant Williams. I actually am probably one of the few. We can't talk about PJ Washington in our waiver wire segment because he's too heavily rostered, set over 70%. I think that should be pushed up higher because of this trade. I am one of the few pundits who believe his value will increase from the fantasy side with the move to Dallas. I've seen some claim he has more competition for minutes with Dallas. I do not believe that's the case at all. He was the backup to Miles Bridges in Charlotte, whereas in Dallas, he should be the starting power forward as soon as he's ready. He's competing for minutes with basically Maximilian Kleber, Derek Jones, Josh Green's going to start at the 3. Give me PJ Washington. I think he's going to start. He'll be, 14 points, 6-7 rebounds, and get you those the blocks and 3-pointers from the 4 position, which is really what has buoyed his fantasy value for the past couple of years anyways.
I was a big PJ Washington fan, not this past summer, but the prior summer when Bridges was going to be out for the year. And I thought Washington's really going to own the starting 4 spot for Hornets. And frankly, he never did grab the bull by the horns. He wound up getting sent back to the bench. I felt a little burned on Washington last season. I don't know. We'll see. I think we might see some Gafford at power forward. I think it's just going to be the others are always going to be a mess in Dallas.
PJ Washington scored 43 points in an NBA game less than 2 weeks ago. He's good. He's significantly better than Grant Williams.
All right. Well, wonderful. Shannon, take us to the news out of Oklahoma City.
All right. OKC Thunder add Gordan Hayward. Hayward's been out since December 26th. He was questionable on Wednesday, which was an upgrade. When healthy, he'll probably come off the bench for OKC. He's really The only meaningful veteran on this roster, SGA, remember, I mean, it seems like he's been around forever, and he kind of has, but he's only 25. So this is, a good veteran presence, add some composure to this team for their playoff run. Alex, when do you think Hayward is going to return to the court?
So he was actually questionable for the Hornets' previous game before being ruled out. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's back before the All-Star break.
Okay.
Nice. And where do we see him sliding in for the Thunder? Right now they're going with the starting lineup of SGA, Giddey, Dort, Jalen Williams, Chet Holmgren. Does he push Giddey or Dort out of that starting lineup, or is he going to be coming off the bench?
So I think he'll come off the bench to start, or to begin. I shouldn't say come off the bench to start. I think he'll come off the bench. But I won't be surprised if he steals minutes from, namely, like Aaron Wiggins. But then I could see him closing games over Josh Giddey.
Exactly.
And Dort's up and down. His minutes are up and down. Sometimes they don't need him for his defense. He'll get in foul trouble, whatever. So
they do love his defense. They do love his defense. And Hayward's not a lockdown defender.
No, he's not. And of course, getting traded does not fix his injury issues. I wrote that in my article.
Yes.
It doesn't fix what's going on with Hayward. But I would be shocked. I shouldn't say shocked. I think he'll play about 24 to 28 minutes most nights, but could push into the 30s in certain situations.
I like this move for OKC. They did need a veteran, as you pointed out, Shannon. They don't really have a veteran on the squad. And it came at a really low cost. I think it's a few second-round picks, and they've got a ton of salary room on this squad. So there's plenty, money-wise, it's not a problem at all. My only kind of minor complaint is it's not like Gordan has a ton of playoff success. He might be as shell-shocked as these kids once playoff intensity kicks in. Because I should look up how many playoff games, but he never had a run with the Jazz. He wasn't healthy for the Celtics playoff stuff.
Don't you remember
that?
Wasn't
playing with Charlotte.
That beautiful composed run he had to the Final Four, right? Didn't they make the Final Four? I think so. He was great. He was great. That was many moons ago.
College. Yes, the college Final Four. Yeah.
It is good, though. I like the fact, you bring in a mentor for Giddey who definitely should not be in a mentor role himself. So I like the move for OKC.
Yeah. Alex, take us to Philadelphia.
Yes. Philly added Buddy Hield from the Pacers, who Pacers gave up Furkan Korkmaz. So rest in peace to the Korkmaz era. One of the last, signs of the process is finally left the building. I just the Buddy Hield is going to. I don't think he's going to see that much more minutes or usage than he was in Indiana. Maybe at first because DeAnthony Melton is still out, but when Melton's healthy, when Batum is healthy, I don't 100% know what they're going to do with their starting five. I think Buddy Hield is going to continue to play about like 26 to 28 minutes a game.
He's got to add to the erratic results of Kelly Oubre here. You know what I mean? Like Kelly's a gunner, but you couldn't always trust him. He'd have some 3 for 16 nights. And now you got you never know like who's going to be hot and just keep shooting. I don't think you can have both of them on the court together too much. They're just kind of redundant. But I actually told my Philadelphia fan here in Vermont when they made that Harden deal, I said they're going to use these assets to get Buddy Hield to the trade deadline. And they actually didn't have to use any of the assets they got in that Harden trade. They were able to get Hield for second-round picks. So, frankly, it was a nice, cheap move for Philly.
What assets? They got assets for Harden? I believe that Buddy Hield, much like PJ Washington, I think this trade will increase Buddy Hield's value. I believe he will eventually start for the Philadelphia 76ers. It might not be the first couple games, but this is a team that's rolling out Nicholas Batum in the starting lineup. That doesn't need to happen. You can slide Tobias Harris over to the 4, have Buddy Hield start at the 3. You could even start Buddy Hield over Melton and have Melton return to that backup role that he's thrived in for many, many years. So I actually think Buddy Hield will eventually see more consistent playing time, and as a result, have more consistent production than he did in Indiana this season.
Indiana never really settled on a rotation. Carlisle was experimenting left and right.
Yeah. We had some other smaller deals. The Schroeder-Dinwiddie swap, which gave me a migraine. Dinwiddie then got waived. Toronto got Ochai Agbaji and Kelly Olynyk. Tillman went to Boston. Detroit gets Fontecchio. Just a bunch of other.
Undefeated in the Fontecchio era.
That is true. But you did. Didn't you waive Gallinari?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see that. They waived the Rooster.
So what's the point of getting Fontecchio?
Picture those two hanging out with their own espresso bar in the Piston locker room.
They can only have that much machismo, Italian machismo, and lover boy. Boo. You can only have one in the room.
Yeah, it's like
they're gonna have Zucchero playing on the stereo system. Zucchero, by the way, is the Italian Elton John.
Yeah, it's like, some teams get guys from Clutch Sports, some guys from certain colleges. I thought Detroit was going to put together the Italian national team.
Oh, would have been great.
See
those guys in velour tracksuits hanging out, sipping cappuccinos.
God, eating Little Caesars.
That's bad news. All right, well, time to talk about our good friends at Underdog Fantasy, Alex.
Yeah, Underdog Fantasy, #1 platform for NBA best ball and DFS player pick'em contests. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, new Underdog users receive a first-time deposit bonus up to $100 and a free 6-month subscription to RotoWire with promo code RWNBA. That's promo code RWNBA. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app today and use promo code RWNBA to claim your free RotoWire subscription and deposit bonus.
That Underdog app is pretty sweet. That's code RWNBA. Shannon, Alex, strap yourself in, boys, because this is the ever-growing popular segment of the site where our beloved fans, usually through YouTube, maybe the Twitters, I don't know, are we on TikTok with this? I can't tell. Ask us fabulous questions, and we answer them live. We're going to start with Paul. Paul wants to know, you dropped Sochan for GG Jackson of your Memphis Grizzlies. Was this a good move?
I don't hate it. Sochan, last 3 games for him, he's been pretty down, and he's played better since moving to the bench, but he's still been fairly up and down. GG Jackson just got signed to a 4-year contract off of a 2-way deal. And yes, he is also inconsistent in his own way, but has shown some stuff for the Grizzlies lately. I think this is kind of league dependent. I think Sochan might end up being a better category league player. Jackson could end up being a better points league guy.
Because Jackson could be empty on blocks, steals. Like, he's just a gunner, right?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I would go with GG Jackson. He had a big 27.9 rebound performance last night against the Bulls. Over the past 3 games, he's averaging 20.3 points, 7 rebounds, 1.3 steals, and 3 3-pointers. Field goal percentage is going to be a problem. He had a 3 for 14 and a 4.
An issue with Sochan too, though, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So Sochan definitely has the some efficiency issues as well. But GG, I love his upside for the remainder of the season. They obviously believe in him after giving him that 4-year deal, trading away David Rowdy to kind of clear some more minutes for him as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Memphis sits even more folks like Aldama or Triple J down the stretch, and GG is truly unleashed.
All right, here's one more. This comes from Novel via the Twitters. He just dropped Kelly the Clinic Olynyk for Andre Drummond in a 14-team category league. Is this a good or bad move, fellas?
I don't mind this because we're seeing some alarming things out of Chicago. Drummond started next to Vucevic the other night, played 35 minutes, went for 16 with 4 blocks. Came off the bench against Memphis, 31 minutes, 21, 13, 1, 1, and 1. Look, Drummond, if Drummond played a guaranteed 20 minutes a game, he would be a must roster player. if he's going to start playing 30 minutes a game, this is like, you got to add him in like every league, like 10 team points leagues, anything. So yes, I'm fine with this.
14 team cat. He is worth an ad. The one caution to the wind that I'll throw out there is Memphis. Essentially, we're going to round up and say Aldama's a 7-footer. He's 6'11". Both Memphis and Minnesota started 2 7-footers or 6'10" plus players in their front court against the Bulls. So that opened up the opportunity. That's why Drummond received the spot start going against Minnesota's Twin Towers. And then he played 30 plus minutes. Plus, I mean, the Bulls haven't made any roster or any trades, at least in like 2.5 years or something insane. It might be a little bit longer than that. They basically are running like 6 guys right now until Pat Williams gets back. So Drummond by default should get pretty solid minutes. And we already saw, in the limited minutes that you've seen earlier this season or for over the course of the entire season, 16 minutes per, and he's already grabbing 8.5 boards and 1.1 steals. I expect the minutes and the production to be up for at least the next handful of games.
All right, fellas, and one last question. This one from Peter. I'm going to rephrase this a little. Ben Mathurin or also Dosunmu of Chicago. He's saying, are they still holds? But let's say, which of those two do you prefer rest of season?
Both of them are still a hold. Mathurin is interesting now that Hield is gone. I think, maybe he starts playing 30 minutes more consistently. I think they have similar upside, but Dosunmu does stuff other than score points, especially on defense, that Mathurin's not going to do. So if you need defensive stats, I would lean Dosunmu. If you're more offensive leaning, I would go Mathurin.
Well, I'll talk about Ben Math more in our waiver wire period. But that's where I'm leaning. Dosunmu's fine, but he is the player. If there is anyone who's been impacted by Drummond seeing increased run, it's Dosunmu. Dosunmu played 39 minutes, 3 games in a row until Drummond was unleashed, and he's dropped below 30 minutes each of the past 2 games, 29 and 27. He is also the player that moved to the bench when Drummond received that spot start against Minnesota. So I like Ben Math quite a bit just because he's a dude who can go out there and score 30 points on any given night.
This Bulls Twin Towers lineup is kind of reminding me of the Detroit Pistons. Little Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart, little Andre Drummond, Nikola Vucevic.
Isaiah Stewart's like 6'8", maybe.
All right, well, that's it for the fan feedback. Alex, take us to the big money segment.
Yes, the waiver wire. So for our games next week, just a heads up that you got to be checking your schedule for whatever site league you play in, because we're dealing with the All-Star break coming up soon. So, from February 12th, which is Monday, to February 19th, only a handful of teams, 5 in fact, play 3 games. Everyone else plays 2 except the Oklahoma City Thunder, who play 1 lone game. And despite that, Ken, I'm recommending you pick up Gordan Hayward. This is maybe a little counterintuitive. Hayward, I should say, the main thing here, Hayward expected to return soon. He got dropped in a lot of leagues.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned at the top, in 32 minutes per game this season, he's averaging 15, 5, and 5. I think there's a strong chance he takes minutes from Aaron Wiggins. I think he could close over Josh Giddey, Lou Dort here and there. Might miss some time. This is not like a major priority ad because he is still injury prone. He will probably come off the bench, all that
He's
stuff.
He's going to have some resting games. That's just like Hayward injury risk rest.
Yeah. If you're in like a 12 teams, there's going to be a lot of other options out there for you. But if you're in a 14 team league, you're in a 16 team league, especially if you're in fab, if you have a fab situation and you got 9 waiver wire options you're trying to pick up, $8, $3, $2, throw Gordan Hayward at the end of that and just see if, you can pick him up if you absolutely need a boost. Ken, who are you going with?
I have an unusual suggestion as opposed to an actual name. I'm just saying the whole gaggle of Memphis Grizzlies. Just throw a dart at somebody. Santi Aldama, Gigi Jackson, Scottie Pippen, or even Jacob Gilyard, they're all rostered 7 to 24%. Memphis has no one healthy. They just dumped Roddy and Tillman. I mean, they gave Gigi Jackson a contract a little after they gave Vince Williams a real contract. Just throw a dart at this skeleton crew. Someone's going to shine, but I'd be lying if I said I knew who. Vince Williams should be long gone, but check for him. He's rostered in 64%. So a third of leagues, you can still get Vince Williams. So I think it's going to be awesome. Do you two have any preferences in this gaggle of Grizzlies?
Oh boy. Well, I can tell you in the last 10 games, Vince Williams has seen the most minutes per game, followed by Jaren Jackson. Then it's Santi Aldama, who we know is solid when he gets the minutes. So I would say Aldama. Conchar is actually after that.
Yeah.
I'm actually major preferences, no, but I think the order of the minutes per game is not bad.
My preference is to not touch John Conchar with any length of pull, but give me Santi Claus, give me Gigi Jackson, give me Scottie Pippen Jr. I like Scottie Pippen Jr. more than Gilyard.
Got the start last night.
Exactly.
Me. Yeah,
Scottie Pippen's been Scottie Pippen Jr. has been very solid when he gets playing time. It's been like every other game is the interesting part, but over the past 4 contests he's played in, he has started 3 of those 4 games, and he has topped 30 FanDuel fantasy points in each of those 4 games. If he sticks in the starting lineup, I think he's absolutely worth a look.
You know, and this reminds me so much of when the Houston Astros tanked and they uncovered Jose Altuve at second base as a gem. That if they weren't tanking, Altuve never would have gotten the at-bats to show what a huge star he could be. I'm not saying they're going to find an MVP, but the Grizzlies are going to uncover some gems, I think, some cheap gems, whether it's Williams or it's Jackson or it's Pippen. But I love reading their box scores, and they're going to uncover some gems for when they're competitive.
Imagine how cool Altuve would look on an NBA basketball court.
Ken, I want to give you a quick pop quiz. You have no reason to know the answer to this.
Okay.
How many players do you think have gotten at least 1 start for the Memphis Grizzlies this season?
Oh, I'm going to say 16, 17. Like, it's insane, right?
Shannon, do you have a guess?
23.
Ken, you were pretty much right. It's 18 players have started for the Memphis Grizzlies this year, and 14 have started at least 7 games.
Oh, sure.
11 have started at least 10 games. So
how many juniors?
How many juniors? Jaren Jackson Jr., Vince Williams Jr., Scottie Pippen Jr., Kenneth Lofton Jr.
Oh, yeah.
And
Lofton, yeah.
Gigi Jackson the second.
Ooh.
That counts.
And then honorable mention, Xavier Tillman Sr.
Yeah.
Love it. And if there's ever a guy who deserves a senior, it's the 25 looking 45-year-old Xavier Tillman.
He doesn't even have a dad.
That is,
he's just born a senior.
You came out of the womb with that beard and receding hairline.
He's his own. He is his own dad. He's a junior and a senior.
Who is your daddy? I am. That's some top research right there, Alex. God, there's your money. We should just close the pod on that. They're not going to do any better. But that said, Shannon, give us your top waiver wire pick of the week.
Yeah, Bennedict Mathurin for the Indiana Pacers. With Buddy Hield gone, that should open up playing time for Ben Math. He's 52% rostered on Yahoo. We've seen the way Ben Math can perform when he gets hot. His per 36 numbers are solid this year, very comparable to his rookie season. 20.4 points, 5.3 rebounds, 2.7 assists. Not much on the defensive end, but a solid 45 and 83% for the percentages. And he's also hitting 1.8 3-pointers. And that, again, that's per 36. I do not expect him to get 36 minutes per game, but there is a chance, they're either going to keep him in a reserve role, have him be the 6th man, have him be that microwave, that Vinnie Johnson off the bench, or he could easily replace Andrew Nembhard in the starting lineup. And probably should. He's definitely the better player between the two. But I wouldn't be surprised if from this date forward, Ben Math is the third leading scorer behind Halliburton and Siakam for the remainder of the season.
Passing Miles Turner. I think Nembhard will be starter in name only, meaning,
Yes.
Nembhard, people will shy away from Mathurin because he's not starting, but Mathurin will have more minutes, more importantly, than Nembhard, regardless of who starts.
Yeah, they don't need more offense in that starting lineup.
Right. Exactly. They need defense. They desperately need defense. All right, Alex, who is your second pickup? And you could have done this as your long shot, but no, you had the cojones to make him a regular pick.
I basically got two long shots. I will say our friend and coworker Ryan said, who had the Jose Altuve reference on their bingo card. Most of my bingo card for Ken is HR violations. So very few player names.
HR violations and 70s NBA players who played for the Bullets.
Yeah. Wes Unseld, the references, stuff like that.
Elvin Hayes.
Yeah.
John Runfield. Some dude I just made up, maybe.
Jeff Ruland. You're thinking Jeff Ruland. And that was 80s.
Oh, man. Well, there's another guy who is not from the 80s. It's Taylor Hendricks, who was probably born in 2001.
I've got T-shirts older than Taylor Hendricks.
Yes. Hendricks of the Utah Jazz, 3% rostered right now. This is a deep league suggestion. Jazz traded away Kelly Olynyk and Simone Fontecchio. In the wake of that, Hendricks played 18 minutes last night. Yes, he only scored 3 points. He took 5 shots. Not bad. Maybe he can score 8 next time. 8 rebounds, 1 assist, and 1 block. Per 36, though, for Hendricks, 12 points, 7 rebounds, 1.3 steals, 2.4 threes, 2.9 stocks. Stocks are especially interesting for those in category leagues. The hope here is that he could start shooting better than, 38, 35, 75 from the field. But if you're in a deep league and, again, you're kind of throwing darts at the wall, maybe some late season shenanigans in March for the Jazz, they spent a pretty high pick on Hendricks. I forget exactly what it was, but it was a high lottery pick or a mid-lottery pick.
What are you going to give his minutes to Kevin Knox or Luka Samanak? The perpetual G League power forward? No, play Hendricks. He's like 12 years old, though. I'm a little concerned that at his young age, he did turn.
Yeah, 20. He 9th overall pick. He was born November 22nd, 2003 in Fort Lauderdale.
I'd say one other note from that Utah game is Walker Kessler started at center. They went big, started Kessler, John Collins, Markkanen, and so Kessler stands, rejoice, 10 points, 9 rebounds, 6 stocks.
Yeah. Kessler managers should be ecstatic with this trade.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go with who at one point Shannon said was the top trade deadline fantasy winner / waiver wire pickup. And that is Marvin Moneybags Bagley in Washington. He's got to be the starting center now that Daniel Gafford's in Detroit. Admittedly, Bagley is hurt, won't play this weekend, but it's not a big-time injury, right, Shannon? All right, Alex?
Bagley?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking up Bagley stuff. 28. That's 2018-19 all-rookie selection Marvin Bagley to you, by the way. 4 straight absences. He partially participated in Tuesday's practice before being ruled out Wednesday and then Friday. So he's on his way back.
Look, per 36 this season, and that's split between Detroit and Washington, 21 points, 10 rebounds, 1.4 stocks while shooting 52% from the field. He's not a good free throw shooter at 69%, but you kind of expect your centers to have poor free throw percentage. Look, this Washington team is terrible. They don't play any defense. Marvin Bagley is going to get a ton of offensive possessions. I don't know why they didn't deal Tyus Jones. That's a whole other topic for the Wizards. But Bagley's going to get a crazy amount of touches, crazy amount of minutes. Maybe Rashawn Holmes pushes him, but there's plenty of minutes on this god-awful squad for both of them. I think Marvin Bagley is a really nice upside waiver wire pickup right now.
There's nowhere you can wager it, but I wish I could wager on will Marvin Bagley score a career high points at some point with the Washington Wizards.
Yes, he will.
Yes, his career high right now is 32 points. And I I
Kuzma's gonna have a
promise you, he will
cold.
score 33.
Kuzma will have a cold one night, or just stop caring, or go to a fashion show, and Bagley will get 33.
A fashion show.
He's always doing
Maybe.
the fashion stuff. Like, oh, come on, play the ball, play the game. All right, Shannon, who's your second pickup? I like it. I like it a lot.
Ausar Thompson, defensive wizard for the Detroit Pistons. He started 2 games in a row, back-to-back games, both wins for the Detroit Pistons. Have I mentioned that yet this episode? 27
and double-digit wins. They're sniffing double-digit wins for the season.
27 and 28 minutes in those 2 games, with averages of 9 points, 5.5 rebounds, 1.5 steals. Nothing to get too excited about. All right. We know he has some problems shooting the ball. He's 63% from the free throw line, 48% from the field, which is actually pretty solid, but only 15% from downtown. The 3-point shot will continue to be a struggle, but if he is truly unleashed and playing 27, 28 to 30 minutes per game for Monty Williams, we're going to see solid defensive production from Ausar Thompson. So if you need defense, that is one of the key areas where he will be able to contribute for your fantasy team. It does remain to be seen how this team is going to integrate Fontecchio and also Quentin Grimes. I do expect both of those players. Those are the 2 trade deadline acquisitions that I expect Detroit to work into the rotation. I don't believe that we're going to see Troy Brown, Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn get too much run for this team. But hopefully with Fontecchio and Grimes, they don't unseat Thompson. We have Muscala banished to the bench to never return. We'll see. I can't trust anything that Monty does, but you have to assume he's gonna just roll Thompson out there in the starting lineup for the rest of the season.
If Fournier gets minutes, and why they haven't bought him out already, I don't know. If Fournier gets minutes, Piston fans should just boycott the arena. They should just refuse to go. I think they're maybe already doing that, but that would be an atrocity. Sidebar, you and I were slacking yesterday about Jaden Ivey really should get a ton of minutes. In fact, play him till his knees bleed. Well, he did play 48 minutes last night in that overtime W over the Blazers. 48. I was kidding a little with the bleeding knees, but
amazing comeback win. Amazing comeback win. The game before, Ivy had 19 points in the fourth quarter. MVP chants will start ringing out in the LCA.
How many fans were in the arena in Portland for that classic Pistons Trailblazers matchup last night?
I could probably tell you if you give me a minute. What was I was going to say something.
Sold,
I lost it.
Tickets sold. They don't really
but Alex, we're going to stay in Detroit.
Yeah.
Attendance 18,125.
Yeah.
That is a lie, ladies and gentlemen.
Portland is a good place to watch a game.
It is. But that's tickets sold.
And they
do
not
butts in the seats.
Portland fills up every time, no matter how good or bad that team is.
Maybe it's just like a Truman Show situation. Marcus Sasser, Detroit Pistons, 11% rostered. Detroit, you might have heard, they traded Bojan Bogdanovic. They dropped Killian Hayes. Like, this is fantasy. They just said, sorry, brother, we're waiving you. Sasser last night played 38 minutes, 17 points, 11 assists, and 2 steals. We're going to talk about Grimes a little bit. A little bit later, very soon. Fontecchio, those guys, I think they're going to see meaningful minutes, but I don't think either are like guaranteed 30 a night. I just think there's room here for Sasser to see 20 minutes a game regularly. Given what he's shown, it would make sense. He is a much better passer than I think people anticipate. He's not just like a spark plug scorer. He's not Cam Thomas. He can pass. And he also has shown some stuff on defense despite being undersized. So, I hope he gets some run down the stretch.
Sasser has upside, and frankly, I like him better than who I put in my long shot, which is sad because I got to pick first, being on Eastern time. But I'll also stay in Detroit for my long shot. I think Quentin Grimes is going to get a ton of run as well. I'm going to see Sasser and Grimes coming off the bench a lot. I think Grimes is going to get 20 to 25 minutes a night. He played 30 minutes a game last season for the Knicks. Wasn't all that great, though. A little over 11 points, 2.2 threes, 1.1 stocks a game, but probably should have more usage with the Pistons. But I guess I am also raising my hand for the Detroit backcourt for my long shot. But yeah, Sasser or Grimes could be interesting.
Yeah, I think Grimes, he's mostly just a 3-point specialist. So, yeah. But category leagues, yeah, you need that.
Well, let's go to Shannon's long shot pick, a name that I've been pestering you to up his rest of season projections a little, but maybe post-trade now. You proved correct, Alex, but go for it, Shannon.
Yeah, Josh Green for the Dallas Mavericks. I was amazed to see that he's only 21% rostered. He has been on quite a tear over the past week. He is averaging 16.8 points, 5.8 rebounds, 3.3 assists, and 3 steals in 33 minutes per. He has been a lock in the starting lineup since January 3rd. He has started. All 17 of his appearances have been as a member of the starting 5 for Dallas. He had 1 DNP, which I believe he was just injured or sick for that game. But over that 17-game stretch, 31.5 minutes per, 12.2 points, 4.2 rebounds, 1.9 3-pointers. Dallas believes in Josh Green. I can't say I have as much faith in him as they do, but there are plenty of rumors with PJ Washington going to Dallas prior to the deadline, and Charlotte apparently wanted Josh Green and a less heavily protected first round pick and Josh Green for Washington. And that's the true reason why that Dallas pick is only top 2 protected, is because they had to sacrifice those protections to not include Josh Green in the deal. To me, that's a clear sign Josh Green's going to stick in the starting lineup. I don't think they're going to start Derek Jones over him. Like I said, I do believe PJ Washington will start at the 4. Josh Green should be locked in as Dallas' starting small forward. He's a good he's a 3-point specialist for the most part. He can get you some defensive stats, and not great, but solid percentages from the floor. Free throws dicey. He doesn't take a lot of those, but if you need some scoring and 3-point shooting, he's worth a look.
You mentioned percentages. Actually, he's been on a great heater the last 10 games. 52% from the field and 85% from the charity stripe the last 10 games. He's figured something out. I think he could be that ideal catch and shoot guy that Luka and Kyrie need when the shot clock is dwindling down.
Yes. He's gonna shoot a little less hot, but he's basically like a 50-40 guy. So yeah, we'll see.
Any drops? Any guys other than the Rooster, Gallinari? Anybody? Killian Hayes? Anybody? We're not. Derek Lively. That's kind of a bummer. Gafford showing up. It kind of hurts both those guys.
I think it does hurt both of those guys. I don't think they're going to be drops, but shallower leagues, if you're in a 10-teamer, just unfortunately you might have to keep an eye on it. Drops. I mean, I don't think there's like any immediate drops. I mean, maybe Dinwiddie actually. You might want to consider dropping Dinwiddie since he is not on an NBA roster currently. I guess the concern would be that he signs somewhere and starts playing like 26 minutes off the bench. But, if he has to be sacrificed for you to get a really strong waiver pickup, then I think you can probably go ahead and do that. And there's some other guys who it's just like we just don't know. Like Dennis Schroeder, is he going to play 34 minutes for Brooklyn or is he going to play 24 minutes for Brooklyn? We don't know about like Olynyk. Is Olynyk going to get bought out? Is he going to start playing 15 minutes? Maybe he's a pickup. There's some stuff that's still kind of unclear. So I think that is a general overview of what's going on.
All right. Well, that's the end of our waiver wire segment. Let's talk FDS or DFS, sponsored by our good friends at FanDuel. Yes, FanDuel, who sponsors our Friday NBA DFS chat with Shannon and Alex. That comes up later in the show, but let's talk NFL Super Bowl. Hey, you can tackle millions in prizes in FanDuel fantasy contests. If you're new to fantasy, the Super Bowl is a great time to get in on the action, slap together some lineups, because right now, new customers get a 100% deposit match of up to $100. Playing fantasy for huge cash prizes on FanDuel is fun and exciting. Just draft your lineup and watch your team move up the leaderboard. I'm kind of being a contrarian in my lineups and going with George Kittle instead of the insanely popular Travis Kelce. Shannon, you got any thoughts for Super Bowl DFS?
It's same as last week, man. Fade Brock Purdy.
KC defense does look good. Anyway, plus on FanDuel, you can choose from full slate contests featuring multiple games, single game contests, season-long best ball contests, beginner-only contest, and of course, nightly NBA, which we chat about here on the pod. Anyway, all these are great for learning the ropes. And when you win, you get paid instantly. So kick off the Super Bowl with a 100% deposit match of up to 100 smackaroonies. Go to FanDuel.com to start playing for huge cash prizes today. And with that, let's now move on to the FanDuel Friday NBA DFS pick segment with Shannon and Alex.
There are 6 games today. And we have the highest over under Atlanta at Philly, 243. Almost more than any point in the season, any individual day. You got to check the lineups today. You got to check the injuries. Guys got traded. They got moved. Guys are sitting out.
There's crazy rules on like who can play right away and who can't on these trades. Like Fontecchio, for some reason, he's like he has to go back to the border and hang out.
He has to go back to Italy. They have to give him a physical there. It's a whole thing. I mean, Nick and I were talking. I can't even believe there were games yesterday. Then there were 9. I mean, it's like, what are we doing?
Why
are they
deadline? That is a little crazy.
Well, they used to have it closer to the All-Star break, but then it sidetracked the All-Star break, so they said we need to have this deadline before the All-Star break. But I agree, they should. It should be a game-free slate on the trade deadline. That would be fantastic.
And the day after, just 2 days, and then push the season back or start it 2 days earlier. Like, why are we? Anyway,
TV deals.
Don't get me started. That'll be my young man. That'll be my young man rant. One of these podcasts. Okay, so on this slate, it's small enough to where I can just quickly run through the games here, just in terms of who's actually playing. Atlanta at Philly, Washington at Boston, Houston at Toronto, Charlotte at Milwaukee, Denver at Sacramento, New Orleans at the Lakers. Shannon, where are you turning first?
I mean, that Atlanta Philly game is, like you'd mentioned, the highest over under of the night. And there's a lot of intriguing options in that game as well. DeJounte Murray, is questionable. So keep an eye on that. Bogdanovic will likely start in his place if Murray sits. Capella out, which means it's another Okongwu spot start. And that makes him a solid option on both DraftKings and FanDuel. 7,100 on FanDuel, and he is at 6,200 on DraftKings. So quite a bit more value in play there with the draft with Okongwu on DraftKings. I also love the fact that on both sites he is center power forward eligible. Just provides some flexibility there. On the other side. And also, let me say, especially if Murray sits, Jalen Johnson, just absolute terror. He's been awesome in 2 games against Philly earlier this season. He is averaging 53.5 fantasy points. I expect him, especially if Murray's out, he'll have to shoulder more of a load. But the other side, the Philadelphia side, I think we might see some Paul Reed hate. He's really underperformed since stepping in the starting lineup, but that's mainly due to an illness that held him back for a couple games, and he only played 15 and 22 minutes while being under the weather. Against Golden State on Wednesday night, he played 31 minutes, finished with 30 fantasy points, six points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals. I love his defensive upside. Give me some Paul Reed, 5,800 on FanDuel and 65. Let's see. Yes, 65 on FanDuel and 58 on DraftKings. Sorry.
Yeah, this the early portion of the slate features some teams that I'm like, do they even care anymore?
Right.
Atlanta, do they even care anymore? Like DeJounte Murray, does he care? Yeah, Washington against Boston, do they care anymore? Toronto, do they really care anymore? Charlotte against Milwaukee, do they care? So not bad teams to target. Boston, by the way, 17-point favorites over the Washington Wizards.
Speaking of caring, yeah. Though
Milwaukee,
I think there's, I know they put a game time tag on Tatum, and I know we're confident we're going to play. I think this might be a good time to rest our lead dog. I don't know if we need that green color by Tatum's name. I'd switch it to gray because I see them conveniently letting Jason rest tonight.
It would be. Go ahead.
Sticking with that game, though, the interesting part for me is, as we mentioned earlier, Marvin Bagley's out. Rashawn Holmes, to be determined if he's even going to be available after being traded to the Wizards yesterday. So what will the Wizards do at center is one of the big question marks for DFS. Are they going to go with a small lineup, move Kuzma up to the 5, plug in Koulibaly or someone like that into the starting 5? I think that's probably the most likely scenario. They
given that two-way guy, Eugene
Omarui.
Yeah, given him some minutes recently. Yeah, he's only 6'6", not a real center.
Is he really? Oh, that's crazy. Oh, this is like a Chuck Hayes situation. I didn't even realize that he was only 6'6".
Wow. He is. I did get the. I was blessed with watching him play for the Pistons a little bit last season. He is undersized from a vertical standpoint, but he is a legit man and can beef it up with anyone down in the post.
Hey, I actually got a good DFS question in the chat asking if in Atlanta, is Okongwu too chalky to play in tonight's DFS? I mean, I'm looking at all these other stud centers. We got Sabonis going against Jokic tonight. Obviously, Anthony Davis, the Lakers. Is Okongwu too chalky to play in DFS tonight, guys?
So it's a tough question because there could be so much value on this slate that opens up that I think roster distribution could be fairly wide. At the same time, at the center spot, I think a lot of people will turn to him specifically. But Shannon also mentioned he's playable at power forward. I don't know, Shannon. Maybe that's more of a question for you.
I do think the dual position eligibility will actually keep his. There are tons of centers available that are solid options tonight, but because of the dual position eligibility, I do think he will be chalky. But again, I mean, there are plenty of intriguing options where you can have a guy who might be rostered in 35-40% of rosters in your lineup and counter that with 2-3% rostered players as well to really offset that chalkiness. So I'm not too worried about his roster percentage for tonight's slate.
We should also mention pushing along the games here, Houston versus Toronto. Toronto very healthy. They're about as healthy as they've been lately. But Houston, no Fred VanVleet still. Amen Thompson has creeped up to 7,200 on FanDuel on the back of a 13-point, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 block performance. 2 games before in only 24 minutes, he went for 19, 7 and 4, 2 steals, took a block at 7,200 against the slower-paced Raptors. Are you interested in playing Amen Thompson at that salary, Shannon?
That 40-point fantasy outing in 24 minutes that you mentioned, that was against the same Toronto team just a week ago. I do still like him at 7,200, which probably, I thought there was no way I would plug him into my lineup when I saw how much he was on FanDuel. But I think there's upside where he plays, 35 or more minutes and not only eclipses 40 fantasy points like he has 2 of the last 3 games, but approaches 50. So I think he is worth that option. He hasn't really put together the complete game where he, 13 rebounds, fantastic. 13 points. He can score more than 13 points in a game, and he can dish out more than 6 assists as well. He's just so good on the defensive end, like his brother, where he can pick up those steals and blocks, that I still like him at 7,200. On DraftKings, he's only 5,800. 5,300. His roster percentage on DraftKings, I believe in the most recent spot start for Freddie VanVleet, he was over 70% rostered. I expect that again on DraftKings tonight.
I mentioned the Charlotte-Milwaukee game. Milwaukee minus 14.5 at home. Damian Lillard and Chris Middleton are both questionable. That's something to keep in mind. Last night, I feel like I need to bring this up. Last night, Middleton was out for the Bucks and Lillard did not play. And the Bucks were only 2-point underdogs to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Why? They got smacked, by the way, 129-105.
He did. Well, they should. Yeah.
What is that about? Anyway, Charlotte, obviously, they're missing PJ Washington now. There's going to be some value, presumably, opens up on Charlotte. Cody Martin's looked interesting.
Alex, let's use this Milwaukee spread issue to plug the NBA picks wagering column on RotoWire, where I do think you should dabble a little more into the spread for Bucks games. You're good at picking Bucks problems.
Well, it's pretty easy because they are the third worst team against the spread in the entire league, and I always say bet against them. So, I mean, that's my blanket advice. If you're like, should I
keep it going? You got to put it in print, baby. Text.
Should I bet the Bucks spread tonight? The other side, yes, absolutely, you should bet it. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Shannon. I mean, let's. I don't want to spend too much. We've gone over an hour already. There are 3 games left on this slate. I think a lot of people might actually end up ignoring the Denver-Sacramento game. Maybe that makes like a GPP, kind of interesting spot. But what are you looking at here in the final 3 games?
Yeah, one thing to watch with the Denver-Sacramento game is Denver played last night, second game of back-to-back. It's possible, Jamal Murray, Jokic, someone sits on the Denver side. The Charlotte-Milwaukee side, I don't expect Milwaukee to get spanked by Charlotte. But I do think there are some intriguing options on the Charlotte side. I would not buy into the big performance Cody Martin had. And Cody Martin also he's expected to play, but he's listed as probable with a knee injury for tonight. He had 42 fantasy points in the most recent game against Toronto. Played 28 minutes, 19 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. He scored a lot of those points early in the game. I don't believe that he's going to repeat and have another 40 fantasy point outing. Even in 30 plus minutes, he typically doesn't do that. But, Brandon Miller, absolutely a guy I like a lot for this slate, even though he's in that mid $7,000 range. Nick Richards, I never picked the right game for Nick Richards. Never, ever.
It's impossible to pick. It's
tough, man.
Hey, is Peyton Watson cheap for the Nuggets? I think he could get big minutes tonight on the second of a back-to-back. That game went all the way to the last 30 seconds or last minute against the Lakers last night. Love to see Denver just shut down the Lakers. It was great. But Aaron Gordon was having to bang LeBron all day. I could see Watson getting some big minutes tonight.
I would pay money to watch Aaron Gordon bang LeBron again tonight. Peyton Watson has been very solid for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
22, his role is consistent. He's seen 20 plus minutes in like 6-7 games in a row. 25 minutes last night. The production's kind of
been out. Caldwell Pope's been hurt, so that's helped opened up some minutes. Yeah,
I don't know if I'm paying $5,200 on FanDuel for him though. When there's so many other options on the slate.
I was hoping he was cheaper. I'm sorry.
For $4,200 on DraftKings, so he is an option, especially if Denver arrests someone. I like him more when his usage is going to be increased because one of the regulars is sitting.
Before we wrap this up, I will just mention this last game. We didn't touch on it, but Zion's questionable. Valanciunas is questionable. LeBron is questionable. Anthony Davis is questionable. So kind of a toss-up. You guys are going to have to check that one on your own. But that wraps things up for us before Ken's. Somebody has to rant. Somebody, please.
I got a rant. I got a rant queued up. Arg! Chicago Bulls. What is wrong with you? Stop sitting on your inept hands and do something. The Bulls are 27, 9th in the East, and destined for play-in status with the old man duo of DeMar DeRozan and Nicholas Vucevic. This team is going nowhere, yet held on to DeRozan, who's 34, Vucevic, who's 33, and Andre Drummond, an old 30. At the trade deadline. Didn't move any of them. Did nothing at the deadline. Drummond and DeRozan will be free agents at the end of the season, which means they're both going to walk for nothing. Vooch can't play defense. Patrick Williams Williams is a restricted free agent that wants to leave, and he stinks. Teams were dying for Alex Caruso and his cheap contract, yet Chicago did nothing. Enjoy your time, Chicago, in the mediocre pit of despair where you will reside for years to come. Arg.
I completely agree with you, Ken. I mentioned on the RotoWire XM NBA show on Sirius XM NBA Radio with Nick, a shameless plug yesterday, that I'm worried that this Kobe White emergence has actually tricked the Bulls into thinking, no, he's Lonzo Ball now. We wanted this Lonzo Ball, Levine, DeRozan, Vucevic thing. And the problem was we were missing Lonzo, but now we have him again. His name is Kobe White. So we're going to win 50 games next year.
Lonzo's never been this good.
That's I take.
That is true. That is true, actually.
You could have coupled Caruso to get DeRozan off your books. People were clamoring. Everyone was mentioning Drummond as a great backup center. I don't know why Drummond's not in Philly, frankly. There had to be deals Chicago could have made. I don't understand them sitting pat.
I've taken that stance in keeper leagues before where, I could pick up a worthless dynasty late round pick, but instead I just want to stick it to those other owners because I feel like their offers are garbage. So it's pretty clear that's what Chicago, they said, we don't need all these second round picks from you. We're just going to hold on to our guys and watch you
keep
suffer.
Our old men and watch them walk at the end of the season. That'll be great.
Yep. Oh man. Okay. Mispronounced name section. I think we had like a Will Grimes snafu.
Oh yeah, I meant Will, as in Will.
Yes.
Grimes get minutes, and I misread it as Will instead of Quentin Grimes. It is certainly Quentin Grimes.
But no, it's not a mispronounced name. So thank you everybody for joining us on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast, presented by Underdog Fantasy and FanDuel. Ken, take us out of here.
Let's go to New York, where Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart on their podcast answered the fan question, quote, who in the NBA could you beat in a fight? Admittedly, they both started off saying, whoa, we don't want any fights. But then Brunson said, I could beat up Ryan Arcidiacono or TJ McConnell. And then Josh Hart added, did you notice in those pronounced names? I said, I'm going to mispronounce
there it is. That's the one.
Arcidiacono?
Arcidiacono.
Oh, bravo. That's why you're the editor, brother. That's why you're the editor. Anyway, when Brunson said he could beat those two diminutive guards, Arcidiacono and McConnell, I still can't do it. Josh Hart said, quote, TJ is one of those guys where I feel like you can't just win. You got to kill him. TJ's not going to stop. He's a pest. Exactly, Josh. We've been saying that on this podcast for years. That is why TJ McConnell is the cockroach. He's a pest that is not going to stop. Attention, passengers. This 3-car fantasy train wreck has hit the end of the line.